our last webinar of 2014, Succeeding in a Changing Environment. I hope you enjoy the presentation. Again, if you have any questions or comments that you wish to make, you may send me a chat message or you can ask a question, and I will make time during the presentation and alert Duff to that. If you would like a copy of the slides, my email address is lwhipps@trincon.com. So, without any further hesitation, I want to introduce Duff Swain, President of Trincon.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome to our program. Once again, some of you have attended before, some of you are new. A good presentation. I hope you enjoy it. Just for those who are here for the first time, a very brief introduction as to who we are. We're a Trincon Group. We are a technology and advisory company in Columbus, Ohio, and we've been specializing in the industry essentially since 1982. The only importance of that is that the presentation that we're going to give you and the ideas we're going to represent are tried and proven processes and procedures that we have implemented with clients over the years. So I hope you enjoy it. With that in mind, just briefly, a little war history that is a foundation for our whole purpose. We started as an advisory company in 1982. In 1983, we developed an activity-based costing model for trucking so we could understand our clients' costs, take their numbers apart, put them back together, and determine where their issues were. And then in 2011, the model, which was an Excel, evolved into a very powerful web-based software called True Costing. Bring that out because it's the foundation of everything that we do. We have a reputation for understanding cost. I'd like to joke that we probably understand cost better than just about anyone in the industry. So that's a little bragging on our part, but that's what we're good at. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about strategies that deal with a changing environment, and so how you can succeed, based on all the conditions that you're facing. The things that we want you to consider are understanding your costs, especially for pricing and results, improved truck productivity, the impact that has on your bottom line, and what we all have to deal with, we've got to improve our ability for driver development and retention. And if you do those three things, you'll have a foundation for profitable growth. That doesn't necessarily mean it gives you a growth plan to survive in the future, but it gives you the foundation on which to build a plan. And until that foundation is in place, future plans are going to have, a little bit, not have a great deal of purpose. So, with that in mind, so we have some polling questions. We go through this each time just to determine, get a better feel for who's in the audience. So Lisa will open up the polls, and you have the ability to please tell us, what type motor carrier are you? We only have the ability to have 5 categories, so please respond as best you can. Wow, got a diverse audience, and I might say a pretty good-sized audience today. You're just very evenly spread across the whole spectrum of the industry. That's cool. That's great. Okay, next question. What's your fleet size? Again, broad spectrum, from very small fleets to some pretty good sized ones. Well, that's just great. Welcome. Next question. What type fleet do you operate? Company trucks only, contractor trucks only, or a combination of both? Very interesting. This is the first time that we've conducted a program where there were no contractor trucks only, and I think you're going to see that continue to be a trend in the industry. All right, with that in mind, some commentary, okay? Just want to make a few comments here, some things that are not just hot buttons, but things that we are based on issues that we consistently observe as we go out and work with clients in an advisory and costing capacity. It astounds me that companies survive in today's market without fully understanding your costs. And I don't mean just simply the bottom line or the divisional P&Ls. I mean the ability to measure the difference between company trucks and owner-operator trucks, or dedicated trucks versus line haul trucks, local versus over the road. What's the impact of one versus the other on the profitability of a load or a customer? And what we see is constantly is an industry that's still adapting and learning how to use the technology that has been pushed into, and putting technology projects ahead of the basics of understanding your costs. And I just walk away and scratch my head when owners and CEOs come back and tell me their management team, really can't get into a costing project and understanding your costs because they're too busy installing something like people and Qualcomm on their trucks. Anyhow, that's the point. Getting rid of the one driver, one truck mentality is still part of our industry. When I would talk about this a few years ago, people would say, well, that's just not possible. Drivers won't go along with it, customers won't go along with it. Now we're seeing a good broad cross-section of our clients and people who attend these webinars who are now finally getting into slip-seat environments where they realize you simply can't afford a one driver, one truck mentality, because truck productivity is the only way you're going to offset all the costs that have come at you and will continue to come at you in the future. Basically, simply, good communications keeps drivers. And your challenge, and we're going to bring this up, is to solve your retention problem first. And everyone in the industry still wants to think it's all about money. Once money's equalized, the turnover doesn't go away. And what makes it go away are good communications with your drivers and giving your drivers a sense of value and treating them as much like an employee as you do your other people. Okay, when you're talking to customers, the one with the best information is going to win the price negotiation. You can no longer use the crying towel method. You're going to have to go in, and if you want price adjustments, customers are going to want to know where and why. And you must have data for that. You've got to have costing data that's better than what they've got if you want to be a good negotiator. Simple statement. Enterprise technology investments. We see too much yet where companies have invested big dollars in enterprise systems, TMW, the cloud, a host of others, and they still don't use them in a way that they're anything other than a recording device. There's not live, real-time use, and it's not being used as a management tool. And these are all issues that you must solve going forward. So we need to change. Trucking companies, failure rates are increasing. This is consistently brought out, every quarter in the industry. It's been going on. We have a higher failure rate than any other segment of the economy, and we will continue to have it, because we're not a mature industry yet. Our costs are increase twice as fast as our ability to increase rates. And this hasn't changed, and it will continue to be an issue that you have to face, and the only way you're going to offset that cost is by not just reducing costs, but increasing the productivity of trucks. The driver shortage will continue. There are no big solutions. You're going to solve this one by yourself. Driver costs are going up consistently, very rapidly this year. Just what came out, a couple of weeks ago on Transport Topics, and people are now looking at different compensation methods for drivers. Okay, other than productivity pay, some combination, talking in terms of drivers as to what the job is worth and what they can earn without necessarily pinning themselves down to how they're going to be paid. But those pay methods are going to change, and we'll talk about that briefly. High failure rates continue in the industry, okay? And they're going to continue. This is both an opportunity for some and a threat to others. So you better, make your decisions. Are you going to, prosper, Are you going to fold your tent and quit, or are you going to wind up being gobbled up by someone else and or fail? So, solutions. Productivity, trucks in operation. If you've attended our programs before, you've heard me talk this thing a great deal of time. And filling empty trucks with other carriers' drivers. If carriers are going to fail, there's drivers available. Now, if you're a small carrier, you have limited resources to recruit, you better start thinking in terms of being the best fleet in town for drivers to gravitate to and create an environment where they want to work for your company and no one else. Because if you're not big enough to go out and bring people into the industry, both segments like military, unemployed, and working with schools, then you've got to be able to attract other carriers' drivers. And the other fact is you're going to have to learn how to work with schools. So you've got to understand one thing above all. Your sales and operating staff must understand and be profit conscious. And they must also understand their costs. You can no longer go out and base your rates on on either just solely market conditions or the fact that you're in this lane and you've got to stay in this lane. You've got to have the ability to sell the kind of business that makes your equipment most effective, and to do that, to understand profits, you've got to understand your costs. So what does that mean? We're going to talk about costing, and the only basis that we have on which to talk about it is the product that we developed. And this is not going to be a commercial. In fact, if you want to stick around and get details on this product, there will be a 10-minute demo after the webinar. But we're going to give you the highlights of what we have to think about costing. Okay, what does all this mean? So we're going to talk about true costing. It is an activity-based cost modeling system, and it's a pricing tool, it's a data analysis tool, and above all, a very strong information tool so you can determine where you can make money and where you can't. And basically what it does is it's going to give you the ability to measure the profit and cost of a trip and drill all the way down to a single truck. And once you drill down to a truck and you can put it with a customer or a different equipment combination or different lanes or various degrees of productivity, then you've got the kind of tool that you need to determine how to take your company forward in a profitable position. Essentially the way it works, it's not a software, it's a model. And we create a model and we pull data from the operating system and from your accounting system into it. And in doing that, it ties the two together. We can pull from any source that we need. We can get all the way down to the finite details of a trip this way if the information in the operating system is current and accurate. And then it provides all of these things. It's going to give us miles between trips. It's going to give you quotation points. It's going to be able to measure speeds. It's going to be able to measure even things like tolls and detention based on geofenced time sequence data. Okay, so it's very, very thorough. Okay, essentially the unique features are it has a very strong KPI system called vital signs. Basically, it gives you the ability to measure anything and establish a standard for it. Then the most important thing is it gives you the profitability of your pricing, gives you the ability to drill down to a single load or a truck, gives you the ability to measure your fuel surcharge if it's compensatory, it gives you the ability to measure different equipment combinations, adjust pricing from averages to actual, and then above all to measure the effect of increased truck productivity. Those are the tools that you need, okay? So with that, it gives you the ability to compare your pricing decisions against actual operational results after the fact. That'll come out in the demonstration afterwards if you want to stick around for it. Now, what it's based on, and what any costing system or industry has to be based on, is the ability to measure the impact of time and distance. You can't measure everything by the mile. So we separate variable expenses and measure them, typically by the mile. And then we take the fixed expenses and we wind up assigning a burden to each operating truck on a daily or hourly basis. So that a 500-mile trip that takes a day versus a day and a half will have different costs because the day and a half will absorb more burden. That's the guts of it, and that's basically how it works. When you apply that, to a trip, and here's, typically a standard kind of over-the-road trip. You go out and you come back. You usually go out for more money than you come back for. There's time involved. There's miles involved. Usually we know the revenue and the miles, but we don't know what the impact of time is. So in this particular case, we've got a fleet. It's got a variable cost of 89 cents a mile. And then we've got a burden rate of $168 on each truck. So what that boils down to, if they complete this trip in 48 hours, okay, the revenue would be $12.50, variable cost $9.16. The fixed cost, based on 2 days, would be 168 times 2, so it's $336. So your total costs were $12.50, $270, and a loss, modest loss of $12.70. Now, if we accomplished that trip, say with drop trailers, and we reduced the time, and we did it in 44 hours, then the only thing that would change would be the fixed cost, and it would, even with the additional equipment added into it, it would reflect the savings and reflect a profit. However, on the other hand, if we took longer to do the trip, then the fixed cost is going to go up. So the only thing that's changing here is the fixed cost, and it's impacting the profit. Very, very important, okay? The other thing is, let's say, modest profit's not enough, and we want to be able to determine what's necessary, say, to get an 8% net before tax profit. So looking at the same data with the drop trailers and accomplishing the trip in 31.3 hours, what it's going to tell us is what we needed for the trip was $1,276 in order to create a profit of $102 at 8%, and that meant the outbound load should have been $796. So this is the basics behind how we determine the price for the cost of money. So with that in mind, and again, details on that, after this session. Proven strategies to consider. Consider the structure of your operations department as to whether or not it's organized to take advantage of the technology that you're using and the abilities of your management. You've got to create a management tool, okay, out of your operating system. Fuel surcharge management. This is the biggest loophole that we find out there. We find operations people constantly that are managing trucks, dispatching, managing trucks, working with drivers, working with customers, planning loads, that do not understand the impact of fuel surcharge and whether or not you're being taken advantage of, or it's neutralized, or it's in your favor. The ability to reduce deadhead. This is huge. It has such an impact on your revenue per total mile, and we're going to demonstrate that to you, okay? And again, operations departments where people don't understand the impact of this, and people are not educated, they're not profit, and they're not revenue conscious, okay? Increasing the driver-to-truck ratio, another huge factor in improving your bottom line profitability. We'll demonstrate that to you. And then operations and driver incentives. These work. Once you're organized to be able to determine your costs, have goals that you can measure, then at that particular point, incentives can be designed so it's a win-win for both parties and makes your drivers and your operations team work together. Okay? What we're basically talking about here is a culture. Our industry has grown and continues to be primarily a service culture. We need to have a profit culture. This is a capital-intensive industry, and you've got huge investments, and you've got to be able to make a profit at what you do. And if you do it right, and you have information, and you can make good decisions, you can have both. You don't have to sacrifice your service culture, but your people need to be educated so they understand the impact of their decisions. So, first thing you need to look at is your operating organization. This is so common. I mean, I can tell you from experience that probably 95 out of 100 fleets that we walk into that are under 1,000 trucks will have an operating department that's still not organized to use the operating system the way it's designed, okay? And this is a culture change, okay? Thinking in terms of the profit impact of your decisions is just instead of covering the load or satisfying the customer or meeting a driver's or an owner-operator's productivity needs is a culture change that we have to go through. It's not easy, and we put carriers through it all the time, but it's huge. And again, reminders, your sales and operating staff must understand profitability and costs. And, okay, think in terms of this, most important, revenue per truck per day and the number of trucks operating. You cannot sacrifice revenue per truck per day. You know, you've got to build up to a level that you know that truck is profitable, and then you have to have enough trucks operating to overcome your fixed cost and make a profit. Yeah, for example, though, you say you have 100 trucks, and all of a sudden, say, your business drops by 10%. Rather than spread 90% of your business over 100 trucks and dilute the revenue per truck per day, you should park 10 trucks, maintain the productivity, and also retain at least 90 happy drivers instead of 100 unhappy drivers and incur higher costs than necessary. And it brings up another subject. If you're sitting there, and you've been sitting there for the last couple of years with 5 to 10% of your trucks empty, why are you keeping those trucks? You can always go out and rent a truck for a new driver and then replace him. Once that driver proves he's going to stay there, you know, buy a truck for them. Get rid of all that capital assets that are sitting there doing nothing but costing you money and burning up operating capital. Just a thought. Okay, the tools you need, you know, for the profitability mindset, very simply, is you've got to have an operating system that's a management tool, not a recording device. It means it's got to be some definition of live in real time. As the information happens, it must go into the system. From the very beginning, when you get an order, any changes to that order, updates to that order, whether it's through the system or it's verbal or whatever, it has to be kept up to date so at the end of the day, when you close it out, it's accurate and can supply all the data that it's supposed to supply to accounting, operating, and all the management information that you could use if the information was accurate. You have to have an operating team that's profit conscious, not load conscious, and you have to have costing to measure the impact of your decisions. Oftentimes, you know, two things have to happen. You know, you've got to enter the data, and then you've got to organize in order to accommodate the design of the operating system. And here's how the operating systems typically are designed. They're designed around the concept of a customer service rep, a driver manager, and a planning supervisor. The customer service rep manages specific customers, manages the relationships, accepts and solicits orders, okay, answers questions, deals with the day-to-day issues of that customer. Driver managers manage a specific fleet of drivers as supervisors, not as dispatchers, as supervisors. And the planner is the problem solver and the coordinator that constantly looks ahead for issues, but also is directing the activity to ensure balance and productivity. So the way it works is customer service accepts, and in many cases pre-plans orders. They do the load finding, they take care of customer inquiries, they work the plan out in conjunction with the planner. It's approved. So there's a plan in place that's assigned to a truck, and that plan is then implemented and managed by the drivers. So you have customer service reps who have a unique set of skills of the ability to create satisfaction with customers, and you have driver managers who are more like a factory foreman who are leading and managing drivers. When you have a remote situation like with a bulk carrier or terminals, you know, the driver manager can be remote, but the planning and the customer service are the ones that should be consolidated into a central control environment. So the plan is set, and if it's managed either from a single location or remote location, it's being managed after the plan is created. That's the way it should work, okay? And in doing that, you oftentimes need to look at your people and whether or not you have the right people in the right place. And this is done, there's some very effective techniques out there called a process called DISC that will define, you know, the personality and the attributes of the people in your department and whether or not they have the innate skill sets to perform that function. And when you do this, These are descriptors of certain types of personalities that one way or another, we're all some portion of this or combination. People who fall into the blue and the red are results-oriented people. People who are green and yellow are relationship-driven. People on the right side who are red and yellow are expressive, and people on the left side who are blue and green are typically analytical. Most drivers fall into this category. You know, they're not supervisors. They're there. They're accommodating. They don't like confrontation. They've proven that to you. They'll walk away or fight rather than deal with issues. They're persistent, control emotion, adaptable, good listeners. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll go do it. Don't lie to me, and then have something for me to do afterwards, and I'll be part of the team. Okay? The people who manage them are on the other side of the spectrum. And your driver manager, sense of urgency, change agent, okay? Process-oriented, quick to change, confrontational, competitive. Okay? If these two don't have a plan, and this person is not leading the driver instead of sympathizing with him or accommodating him, you've got a problem. Because you're managing capital assets. The planner, can either be a manager, can also be an analytical, doesn't have to interact with customers or drivers. Doesn't have to be a strong personality. It's got to be someone who knows the business and knows how to make a good plan and solve problems. And the customer service rep is the person who maintains the relationship with the customer with a high trust level. There are processes around that you can test your people to see if you've got the right people in place. We typically find, time after time, most operations departments are filled with people who have gained your trust because they're good worker bees. They're supporters, relators, and promoters. And they're not necessarily managers. And in many cases, they can adapt with training and the right kind of structure. But you need to realize this is a key, important, vital part. So on top of that, incentives for the operations department. It works, okay? And incentives are very, very complicated. And typically what we recommend is a process that has three parts. We recommend a salary, that has the ability to have a range based on tenure and experience so it can be adjusted on a regular basis, okay, based on merit increase. It has a bonus after reaching achievable productivity goals. They would then get 10 to 20% of the salary, which is where you want them to be. If they're not earning the combination of these two, they're not doing the job. And then when they go over the top, based on measurable goals, there's a way, whether it's in productivity or it's excess profit, that you can share this incentive and everyone can be rewarded. And it works. Now, short term for an operations department, there's also a very effective tool that works and is quite simple, okay? Now, and this, because you've got to have a lot of good data to do the others. Now, on the other hand, if you know you need to take the productivity of your trucks from one level to another level, and the impact is going to be very effective on the company, either reducing loss or creating profit, you can take this approach. Establish a revenue per truck per week goal, and then add $25 a day to it, okay? Then every team member in your operations department will take home either $50 up to $100 per week when they hit that goal. Just that simple. And then every 3 months, change the goal by $25 per truck. Now, we've done this time after time after time. And once we're in a position to define that kind of a goal, that pulls together, and typically we make the goals in the time frame, and revenue winds up coming up sometimes $50 to $100 per day per truck, just based on that effort. It works. Give it a try, okay? And do the math, okay? It works. Let's say you got 100 trucks, you get a $125 increase on revenue. That's $12,500. Typically a dry freight carrier's gross margin is going to be about 35%. So $43.75 of that went to the company. The bonus went to the people, was $500. It's a net difference to $38.75 to the company, or $200,000 a year. It's a win-win. So give it a try. Deadhead. Ask yourself, what's the impact of deadhead? Do you really know? Have you ever measured it? Okay? So let's just look at it. Let's take that same trip that we're looking at. And what we've got here is we've got this, and we've got a situation that has 85 miles of deadhead in 1,050 mile load. All we're going to do is reduce that deadhead by 15 miles through good planning, okay? So it's going to go from 16.7% to 12.4%. The impact of that is huge. Look at the swing here, from a 4.5% profit to a 7.8. Typically, 4 percentage points of deadhead will increase your bottom line by 3 percentage points. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And you need to be looking at that every minute of the day. The other thing is, if you know what the impact is of slip seating. More than that, do any of you, let's do a little polling question here, how many of you are slip seating on a regular basis, on a planned basis, some portion of your fleet? Please answer that poll. Okay, changing times. As I mentioned to you before, a couple years ago, I'd ask that question, and it would come back 95%. And then 10 years ago, it would come back 0, okay, that you were slip seating. And we got a situation here where you're saying 43% of the audience is slip seating their trucks. This is huge, and we all have to learn how to do it. And if those of you who aren't doing it in some fashion, take that away. Other people are doing it, why can't you? Something as simple as having a ratio of 11 drivers for every 10 trucks. So when someone's on vacation, which typically is trucks are off for scheduled time off, usually about 8% of the time, then you've got a driver to drive someone else's truck while he's on vacation or off for a couple of days and increase, the productivity of your fleet, let alone those loads that you could, if you went and sold it right to your customer and found the right drivers, could be running loads second shift and or on Saturdays. So this is going to be an important part. We're the only segment of the industry, of the transportation industry, that has grown up with a one driver, one truck mentality. Ships don't do it, planes don't do it, barges don't do it, taxi cabs don't do it, buses don't do it, trains don't do it. When was the last time you got off an airplane because the driver ran out of hours and had to take his plane home? So give that serious thought, okay? Looking at an example, here's what you have. You've got a trip here that you can return in 11.8 hours, okay? And then you run it out the second shift, and basically what happens is the revenue doubles, the variable cost double, but the burden was absorbed by the first shift, so it does not change. And consequently, the gross margin from the second leg drops to the net margin of the first leg, and you get a blend, and it's huge. Basically what you'll find out is this, okay? You will be able to slip seat 10% of your trucks, and you will increase your bottom line by 2 percentage points. It's huge. It's absolutely huge, okay? So, with that in mind, okay, do you know what the profit impact is of inadequate fuel surcharge? All right? Do you know what the symptoms are? And you'll find this. Go down in your operating department, and ask your people if they understand how fuel surcharge is calculated and why one customer expects a different fuel surcharge than another, okay? And what you find is if you're using the customer's percentage rate, then it's the customer's advantage, period. Simple. No other point. You've allowed the customer to out-negotiate you, okay? And the only way you'll change this is if you've got data to prove to him that his method is causing you to lose money on a commodity that you have no control over, that should be pure and simple a pass-through, okay? If you're using the customer's fuel peg instead of your own, it's to his advantage, okay? If you're rolling fuel surcharge into the rates, like most brokers force you to do, you've got to separate that fuel surcharge from those rates so you understand what the real impact is on the rate. And if a customer is doing this to a regular customer, it's because he knows long-term fuel is going to go up. And if you tie in into their fuel, roll their fuel surcharge in at a fixed point, at some particular point, it's going to work at it because it's not going to go up in proportion to market rates. So these are symptoms. You'll find out you're operating in your sales department whether or not they understand that and what you're doing about it, to negotiate with it, okay? So an example, very simple. Here we've got a load, 200 miles, and it's got a 28% fuel surcharge established, by, say, our current index, okay? And right now all that's changing because fuel is coming down. And on the backhaul, though, the load is $250, but it has no fuel surcharge. It's rolled in. So what you've got to be able to do is to back that fuel surcharge out, and when you do it, you find out that that load essentially has $150, is only $180. So instead of $650, you've only got $580 for the trip, okay? And that impacts your profit. Huge. It's just huge. Okay? You've got right here like an 11% swing because you didn't fully understand the impact of that broker load on the backhaul. It's huge. So, how are you going to, the fastest way to increase profit? Compensatory fuel surcharge. That's the fastest thing. When we go into a client, usually the biggest impact that we get right away is getting this situation corrected. And typically, it's a sales problem where the customer has to be sold. You have to have information. You have to understand your cost. You have to be able to demonstrate it. And you're not going to do that at the working level. You've got to go to the top management, which is a sales issue, a subject maybe for another webinar, okay? So, drivers. This is the biggie, okay? And I'm going to give you some highlights here. To get into drivers requires a whole webinar on its own. So we're going to give you, what we feel is the most important, okay? Because we both understand there just aren't enough existing drivers to meet the market needs, okay? So what are you going to do about it? It's hugely expensive. And here again, understand the cost. Educate your operating people and your recruiting people so they understand what the impact of this is and why you're trying to solve a problem. So let's look at, a fleet of 250 roughly. That's partially company trucks and partially contractors, okay? And let's say we've got 5% of the trucks sitting against the fence, which is pretty typical, okay, in the shortage, okay? And your turnover rate is not even at the current level of over 100%, but let's say it's 85%, okay, and owner market is only 20, okay? And it takes 30 days to reseat a truck. So we've got, a monthly budget that this is costing us of advertising, website development, recruiting staff, orientation, all that kind of good stuff that you have. And let's say it's $29,000 a month, okay? It's huge. People and everything else, okay? But the big costs are these. You've got you've got all of your trucks that, based on 85% that are empty for 30 days while you receive them. The loss in gross margin, the truck's sitting there, you're incurring the cost, okay? The loss in gross margin contribution, which would go directly to the bottom line, $89,000 on an average. If you're a bulk carrier, it's a whole lot higher than that. And the loss on those 10-part trucks, $73,000 a month. I mean, you're talking huge, huge numbers. And that's the same as 2% increase to your bottom line profit if you could solve that problem. If you could solve half of that problem, it's a huge increase, okay? Plus the ability or lack of ability to respond to market conditions and grow. So, again, maybe you've seen this before. Go find out if the people in your operating department and your sales department understand this. Okay, so what's a strategy? Well, let's be realistic about this, okay? You've got to solve your turnover problem first. And that's a communication problem. It doesn't make any sense to go out and bring new people into the industry and throw them into a cauldron, that continues to churn and burn. You've got to solve your turnover problem first. Okay? You've got to have something to sell to attract either new drivers into the industry or to attract your competitors' drivers to your company. And we're talking about creating the environment of a career path so a driver feels like they have value to the company and have a future for themselves and their family. And that's what's going to happen, have to happen in the industry if we're going to bring the kind of people into the industry that we need. Okay? You've got to identify target sources. You can't recruit beyond your means. You can't take a scattergun in the recruiting process. Technology has created a new environment, and you've got to be a whole lot more sophisticated than you ever had before. Okay? And like it or not, you better start developing a relationship with the school. At some point, you're going to have to cultivate new drivers. Okay? And schools are not necessarily all good. Most of them do not have good curriculums, let alone what's known as a finishing curriculum, where they can train your trainer to finish the new driver. And this is so essential because your insurance company is going to be looking for you to have a finishing program that ensures them that a driver out of a school is trained to drive and operate a truck under your operating conditions. Okay? Very, very important. So with that in mind, okay, onboarding. Don't just do orientation. I mean, God, walk into so many companies, and walk into an orientation room, and there people are still looking at slide presentations and reading manuals and signing off on documents instead of really feeling like they're an employee and an associate and allowed and brought in so they identify with the company and learn about the culture of the company, that they learn from the management, learn from the people that you're going to work with in such a way that it's a see, do, touch, and feel environment. And then when they walk away, they understand the company, its purpose, its culture, and where they fit into it, okay? And you'll avoid misunderstandings. You won't have someone saying, you lied to me, okay? You'll build a sense of belonging. You'll reduce anxiety about coming into the new job or breaking in a new driver. And you'll get into a position where you create an environment where that person walks out of the onboarding process and wants the job. And once someone wants the job, they're going to do what's necessary to keep the job, so you can set job performance expectations, which just routinely does not exist in our industry. It just blows my mind, the drivers that we have out there operating this capital-intensive business, that no one has ever told them what is expected of them as far as performance and quality standards through the course of the day, week, or the year. Something as basic as a job description, okay? So this is all about communication, about, meeting with your people, having management communication systems. I have 3 clients that we've been going through this kind of conversion with this, in the last 6 months that, have gone through this conversion. And the big hump was finally taking this whole program to the drivers and getting the drivers on board. And once they organized the information, and they did it in such a way that the drivers understood the need, the reason, the plan, and their role in it, and communicated this like they would with any other employees and made them feel like employees, they walked out of the meeting afterwards saying, I never realized the drivers could be so understanding. And then all of a sudden they find out those drivers become part of the team, and your turnover just drops. Yeah, just drops. It works. It works. Just try it. Okay. The next thing is, let's ask you another question. How many of you actually do a merit review for your driver on some basis? And I'm talking about a review of your driver that's precipitated by something other than a problem. In other words, a scheduled merit review, okay, against some definition of what their responsibilities and expectations are? Please answer the poll. Well, unfortunately, this one hasn't changed much. People are slip-seating trucks, and they're doing a better job of selling customers, and they're doing better jobs of maintaining and buying equipment. But over the years, when I look at the results on this poll, where only 25% of you, review your drivers on an annual basis, and 63% of you only review your drivers when the discipline occurs, and 13% of you aren't sure. I mean, therein lies the reason for your turnover, people. Take that back with you. And the ones that aren't doing it, shame on you. Go back and do something about it. I can say things like that because this is a free webinar. Okay. All right. And look at it this way. There's a logic here, okay? If you bring your drivers into a not an orientation, but an onboarding environment, at the completion of orientation, you're going to have established the environment where they know what the expectations are, okay? They walk out with a job performance. They walk out with performance standards and work rules, okay? And they're going to want the job. So in 7 days, have a quick review. Maybe it's the trainer who traveled with them for a couple days in the truck, and that should happen every time, okay? And in the 30 days, you have another review with operations, and you're doing good, or you need to work on this, and you work on that. But in 85 days, based on a 90-day probation, you're going to have a review, and it's decision time. And that driver is in an environment where he knows he's either going to have a job and some kind of a promotion, or he's not going to have a job. And then every 6 months, have some kind of review. We call it performance. It's communication. Sit down and talk to this guy and tell him what's going on and what his role is, and get his input and get his thoughts and his ideas and talk about his issues, but also tell him what he needs to do to live up to expectations and improve. And then every year, structure this thing so it's a tenure and a performance review. And you should be measuring tenure, both industry experience and tenure within your company, and rewarding that in your compensation package. If you're not doing that, you should be. Pure and simple, you just should be, okay? And then you've got to have something to sell, okay? You've got to have something to sell. And we're not going to get into a huge deal on drivers. I mean, if you were to do just what we talked about, but realize that you've got to have something to sell. Recruiting is a selling process, and the environment has changed. We've got salespeople as recruiters, okay? But running ads and running ads in the newspaper and running ads, in George's List or Henry's List or wherever you want to go to, is not the environment that you're existing in. Let me ask you, do you know what your most effective recruiting tool in the industry is right now? The most effective? I mean, is it the newspaper? Is it getting out and going to association meetings? Is it having job fairs and all that kind of good stuff? You know what it is? Man, it's your website. You're living in the age of technology, and this is symptomatic. We walk in and we find companies who aren't using their technology to its best advantage in their operating department and how they run the company. We find out that they aren't using their technology on their website. These drivers are all driving around with smartphones, and they do searches, and then they go through search engines, and those search engines are drawn to you for a specific reason, to your website, okay? And it's not just because you've got a good design. We see lots of websites that are good design. Paid a lot of money to someone to go out and design your website, but what you didn't pay someone who not only designed a website, but knows how to tie it in and design it so it attracts driver searches and search engines. This is huge, and this can be measured. I mean, the ability to measure the effectiveness of your website is there, and we've got companies that do this. If you want to find out about it, contact us afterwards, okay? And also, be realistic. If you're a small company, if you're a really big company, you can afford to go after all these people, okay? If you're hiring thousands of drivers or 1,000 drivers, okay? Or if you're a small company, you have limited resources. focus on the ones you can go after. Go after existing drivers. Focus on your carrier competition, okay? If you're going to stimulate the workforce, go after displaced workers because they have funding available for a school, gets back to the school, okay? And if you really get sophisticated and you want to try something that requires a culture change, then bring military into it, and they have funding available, okay? But don't go out and spread yourself too thin. Go after what you want, and the most viable one is your competition. Quick question. How many of you think that the driver is a labor position, or do you really think they're a professional? Go ahead, answer that poll. Well, this is encouraging. You know, only 10% of you aren't sure, okay? But 80% of you are saying it's a valid professional, and 10% still consider it a labor position. This is changing. Now, that attitude can change, but your recruiting techniques say you haven't changed with the attitude, okay? So you've got to change, okay? And it is a profession. When you look at the definition of a profession, the development of formal qualifications based on education, apprenticeship, and examinations, the emergence of regulatory bodies with powers to admit and discipline members, some degree of monopoly rights. I mean, look at it. The driver, what he has to go through to get a good and keep a license, okay, anymore. What he has to learn in order to use the technology that's vital to his operation. These guys are pros, just as much as any electrician or plumber out there. And we need to start thinking in terms of that. When the industry needs to think in terms of a career path. Eventually, you're going to pull guys out of high school. You know, whether they come from high school, trade schools, they've got to go through a driving school, okay? There should be different levels that they go through in order to get to a point where they're the best driver in a specific area, or they become an owner-operator or a small fleet owner. This environment is possible in any small trucking company out there. You can have different plateaus, you can have different levels of experience, and some of your guys are going to want to be owner-operators and small fleet owners. If you're a bigger company, they can have opportunities in different divisions of your company. And if you're a really big company, you can bring your college grads through the same thing. You know, case in point, UPS and FedEx. It works. Give it a try, okay? Incentive compensation, you know, that's going to be the subject of another program. You know, this is changing. This environment is changing drastically. We're seeing and we're promoting the idea of paying drivers a salary plus incentive, of actually making them have a salary that increases with tenure and experience, and a productivity rate that enhances that salary to the point that they can go out and do what's necessary and make $50,000 a year and go over and above and do more than is necessary and make $60,000, $65,000 a year. By the way, you know, this last week, Fleet Owner Magazine, you know, had a national webinar, you know, that promoted that same concept. So this is happening, okay? So real quick, I want to show you how these ideas could affect a company. And we've done this before. This has to do with a little operation that we call mock-up trucking, okay? And I'm going to pull this up real quick, and I'm going to run through this example with you. And essentially what we've done here is we have created a mock company. And we put a P&L together, and it's driven by productivity stats and number of trucks, revenue per truck per mile, number of miles, trucks operating, all that kind of good stuff. And it's got over-the-road trucks, short-haul, multi-shift trucks, slip seat, and it's got contractors. The net result is all summed up on this particular example, okay? And what it shows you is that we have a fleet that has 127 trucks in these different categories, and it's losing money, $15,000 a month, okay? And it also shows you, because of our cost modeling technique, where it's losing the money. You know, the company trucks aren't making money, the short-haul trucks aren't making money, the slip-seater trucks are making some money, and the owner-operators are making some money, and oh yeah, there's brokerage over here that makes some money. So we're going to take the principles that we've just learned, and we're going to start looking at things. Okay, we're going to say that the company trucks are going to be treated and the owner-operator trucks on the same. You're not going to allow the owner-operator trucks to manipulate the situation. So they're going to be, over-the-road trucks going to be created the same. So we're going to blend this. We've got 500 miles instead of 480 here, and we've got 500 miles instead of 520 here. Okay. And then we're going to come back and we're going to equalize, you know, the rate. So instead of $1.55 and $1.61, better for their owner-operators, which is very, very common. Yeah, you got that. So it's going to be now $1.58 and $1.58. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to then equalize the deadhead, since we've equalized the freight. So it's going to blend, and it's going to be 14% there, and it's going to be 14% here. And my God, look at the impact on the bottom line. We just went from a loss of $15,000, you know, to a profit of $28,000 by balancing out the productivity and taking advantage of the greater gross margin being contributed by the company trucks. Let's look at the impact of this on our deadhead ratio. Okay, it's 14%. Let's see. We're simply going to get this down by 2 percentage points. So we're going to take it down to 12 for both over-the-road trucks. Boom. Look at the impact of that on the bottom line. Just doubled our profit, okay? And we're going to improve the short-haul trucks, you know, say by 2 percentage points and get that down to 18, okay? Huge impact on the bottom line. Let's just say the slip seat trucks, we're only going to improve that, say, by 2 percentage points. We're going to take it down to 23. Look at the impact on the profit. We've got a company right now that's making 4% net before tax profit. That's really not as good as it should be, but drivers are doing well. They're making $1,050 a week. The owner-operator's got a $2,400 settlement plus fuel surcharge reimbursement. Okay, so now let's look at what we can do with increased productivity and realizing that at 50 miles an hour, 11 hours a day, you can get 550 miles out of a truck. And if you have 11 drivers for every 10 trucks, you can do that with all your trucks. So we go over here and we've got 550, okay? And then it means we get 450 out of the short haul trucks. Excuse me. And in the slip seat trucks, we drive that up to 900 because not all the trucks are slip seated. And voila, you know, we've got a company that's making a respectable profit based on being a capital-intensive business. So people, it can be done, okay? It can happen, and you can make it happen, and you just have to understand your profit and go out and sell properly, okay? So with that in mind, I want to come back, you know, to our presentation. And if I can get this back up on the screen here and get back to my slideshow from the current slide. We're ready for questions. Lisa, do we have any questions?
I have not had any questions right now.
Well, think about it now. There's no bad questions. If anyone's got some questions, they can just raise their hand. No one knows who you are, so you're not going to be embarrassed. No bad questions. If you've got a question, please ask. We're getting any?
I haven't seen any questions yet, sir.
Okay, all right.
Somebody did mention about maybe fixing the internal issues could come before retention could be more successful.
Well, they probably have to clarify that, and I can speculate. Yeah, internal issues mean that the culture change and management mindset and operations mindset, you know, has to change in order to make retention part of the company's environment. In other words, you've got to create a culture that drivers want to be in, and you just can't go sell the culture without changing it first. If that's what they're referring to, then that's absolutely correct. You know, when you lay something like this out, it is a plan. It has to be done step by step. These problems don't happen overnight. You don't solve them overnight, and you got to have a plan that solves them one step at a time. Anything else? All right. Then this is technically like the end of our program, okay? Well, what we're going to do here is, if those of you who want to stick around for 10 minutes, we're going to give you a demonstration of true costing, so you can better see, the guts behind all this information and how we apply it and how you can apply it for yourself. So, with that in mind,
Duff, there was one quick question, if I might interrupt. Somebody asked if we had any benchmarking tools for equipment repairs, wears on tires and brakes, etc.
Based on our experience, yes, we do, but you'd have to contact us after the meeting privately. It's a huge subject and has an awful lot to do with the service of the equipment, the type of equipment, age, conditions, operating, all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, we do have, it's not catalog information, it's information based on our experience.
And another question is, do you have a recommendation for an enterprise accounting system that will collect enough data to use your activity-based costing analysis for a small trucking company?
Well, there's a lot of good ones out there. QuickBooks is even, it has improved so drastically over the years, okay? It's good. And you can get into some more sophisticated ones, like Mass 90 and things like that. The basic thing that you've got to do is get a hold of the accounting supplier and show them the guts of your enterprise system, or go to your enterprise system and ask them what accounting systems will interface, okay? They should be the best source to tell you that. But it's, we see all kinds of operating systems out there that are web-based now, that aren't, the big TMW or McCloud systems. And there's some very good programs, and they realize, and are coming to realize they have to interface more with the accounting system than they sometimes anticipated, and most of the good ones are responding to that. So first of all, go ask them. Anything else, Lisa?
No, sir, that was it.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, what we're going to go into, if you want this program, we're going to post it on our website afterwards. So basically it'll wind up on YouTube, so you can see it and you can download it. You can do anything that you want with it. We'll be in touch with you, and if you want, on an individual basis, Jim Swain, our VP of Business Development, can probably make that happen for you. But with that in mind, we're going to go into true costing. Okay. So little repetitive here, about the first few slides, talking about true costing. It's a cost modeling system, pricing tool, data analysis tool, management tool that basically drills down to the cost of a single truck, so you can put it with a customer, different equipment combinations, lanes, productivity, and be able to determine the difference in cost of one type truck versus another. Okay. It is a system that, again, doesn't require an interface. We design a model based on our knowledge of the business as to how you operate. We then pull data from your operating system into that model and from your trial balance into that model. And as a result of that, it gives us the ability to mine data and create standards and measure all kinds of things, whether they're cost centers or they're variable costs or fixed costs or things that you want to add in on special occasions. There's all kinds of tricky stuff in addition to, fuel consumption, trip timing. We tie into the geofencing. We can measure all kinds of things. It's just amazing, what we can measure with this thing. Okay. Unique features, as I said, vital signs, the ability to measure profitability of your pricing and drill all the way down to a single truck, fuel surcharge, different equipment combinations, being able to actually adjust the averages of your KPIs to the actuals of a given situation and measure the profit effective productivity, plus be able to go back and actually measure the impact of your decisions after the fact. So, two principles, time and distance, variable cost per mile, burden rate per truck. We've been through all that. And we've seen these examples where time impacts cost, and the more efficient you are, your fixed costs go down. And we saw this example of using this as a pricing tool, okay, to determine that this outbound load should have been at $796 to generate an 8% profit instead of a 2.6% for the trip. So behind that, okay, what will this do for you? Once we create the model and we pull everything into it, your trial balance would look something like this. On the left side here, you have all of your accounts, whether they're revenue accounts, expense accounts, and expense accounts can be semi-fixed, and they can also be fixed. Separate your variable costs. This can be anything that you design it to be, and when you click on any one of these categories, you will have all of the accounts in the trial balance that's behind that number, okay? And when you get done, the whole thing is going to then tie to your balance sheet because the trial balance is going to be duplicated. And more than that, then it gives you the ability, to do this, based on cost centers. Now this, in this case, is terminals. This could be company trucks, contractor trucks, local trucks, dedicated trucks. It could be anything that we determine as a cost center, or those same cost centers could exist within the terminal, okay? So if you want to drill down, then you would click on the cost center, and it's going to come back and it's going to give you the same detailed financial data from the trial balance, but it's going to start measuring things in some kind of increments that are applicable to the costing model. For example, you can determine what your variable cost per mile is based on what your standards that you decide constitute that, and you can also determine what your burden rate is and whether or not you're going to measure that by the hour or by the day or whatever. Okay, so and note these are averages, and when you're doing pricing, the variables and the fixed can be adjusted to fit the situation. For example, your averages on fuel consumption might change in a given load. Your averages on tolls could change. You could have different equipment combinations. Maybe you have to insert more drop traders in a given situation. And in the pricing model, you can adjust for these things off the averages. Very flexible. Behind it, you start getting KPIs. We call vital signs. And this can be any place you want. We can basically set up KPIs, whether it's for the corporation, for terminal, for division, on any kind of operation that you want. And they're set up, if you've got a standard, it's going to come back and tell you by the arrows whether you're meeting that standard or not meeting it. And if you can zero in on a terminal and you zero on a KPI that says you're down, you can drill down and find out why. And they'll give you in-depth additional KPIs, by whatever division or cost center or department that you want. And by the same token, once you establish a standard, it's going to measure. It's going to tell you if you're above the standard or if you're below the standard. And the standard could be a goal, or maybe it's the last quarter. Okay, it's very, very detailed. And then you can go again. You've gotten this from the terminal. You can also drill all the way down by any time frame that you want, down to a week, even down into a day. So when you start getting into data behind that, and you start looking at customers, over here on the left side, you've got a group of customers, okay? And over on the right side, you've got the results of that time frame and that productivity for their profit. And it will, you can drill down further, and all of the categories along the top, these are indicators that you've set up and define you need. And when you click on one, like if you wanted to click on gross margin, you would go from ascending to descending values, so you can look at the very best and the very worst customer and organize that data. And then when you click on a customer, you can start to drill down into the loads that constitute that profit or loss. So in this particular case, let's say you decide to go to the bill-to side of the business. Again, you've got a list of customers within that time frame. You've got all the indicators that can be looked at, from the very best to the very worst. And you've got the results out here. And even start to split things out like fuel surcharge variance. So if you want to drill down further, let's say you drill down and you're drilling down at the load level, all the way down to a single load. And here's 4 loads that are the same loads, but in one case there's a wide variance in profit of $67 versus $572. And when you look at it and analyze it, and it has that ability, you're going to find out that it wasn't price, but what it was post-load deadhead of one trip. They sent the truck someplace they hadn't planned. So it does all of these things for you. It creates an environment whereby you have a review process. I mean, if you get a rate request, you've got a cost model or pricing model to go to establish that. You can then take that and adjust that pricing model based on assumptions, like are the tolls right? Is the equipment combination right? Okay, you can adjust it and tweak it down to the point where it fits the situation, which gives you a rate that you can run with, and then use the same information and analysis tool to come back and review if how you planned it is how it was operated and if the results were as expected and whether or not it has to be adjusted. So this is a very sophisticated but very easy to use and very easy to set up. It's not time intensive. And when you get done, obviously you have the ability to take all this information and price. And a logical sequence. You define a trip by zipper city. It's going to come back and it's going to give you the ability to define the desired profit level or analyze an existing price for profit. It's going to allow you then to determine how you want the price package and all that kind of good stuff. It's got bells and whistles. And then it's going to give you a definition of the trip and its miles and time. And it's going to come back and it's going to give you an overview of the profitability of that pricing with and without fuel surcharge and allow you to roll it in or leave it out. It's going to allow you to to decide what you want to do with post-load and preload deadhead, again, bells and whistles. And most importantly, it's going to give you the ability then to save the results. So you can come back to this model like on a quote and determine whether or not it's operating the same. So that's basically how it works, okay? And for all of you that stayed for it, I'll ask once again, do you have any questions? Well, with that in mind, here again, you'll be hearing from us. Whoops, all of a sudden I went blank, okay. We'll be in touch. Jim Swain, our Director of Business and Vice President of Business Development, will be in touch for two reasons. Now, we want your input, and you're going to get a survey after this. And this thing has been free, so please respond to the survey and give us your thoughts on how valuable this program has been for you, or any comments or suggestions that you might have. And Jim's also going to be there to see if we can be of any service. So if there are no questions, we're going to end this thing. No questions, Lisa? Thank you very much for attending. We're closing the webinar.